Come with me if you want to live. Good morning and welcome to Whenever You Are. I am Bandit Haze, and today I'm going to be talking about Terminator 2. Now, Terminator 2 is an action movie that came out in 1991, directed by James Cameron, starring Linda Hamilton, Robert Patrick, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and introducing Edward Furlong. But that you already know, and if you don't already know, then you should probably go watch the movie first, because this will contain spoilers. Oh, it's okay, I'll wait. Just don't leave me waiting 30 whatever years like they did in Terminator Genesis, because that movie sucked. Speaking of which, for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to be referencing Terminator 2, specifically the extended version of Terminator 2. I'm not going to be referencing Terminator, Terminator 3, Sarah Connor Chronicles, Salvation, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, or anything else in the Terminator franchise. And there's two reasons for that. One, I don't want to. And two, I really don't want to. So Terminator 2 is a film about a young boy, John Connor, who in his future is going to become a great military leader. Now, in order to stop that from happening, his enemies in the future send a T-1000 liquid metal robots back in time to 1995 when John was still a child to kill him. Now, while they didn't send T-1000 back to the 1960s when his mother was still a child, or better yet, just kill his dad before he gets sent back to 1984, just saying, there were other options with a much higher chance of success. Anyway, future John Connor sends back a reprogrammed T-800 to act as his protector, although considering future John Connor isn't the whiny little bitch that Charles John Connor is, what he should have done is send T-800 back to before 1984 to kill Miles Dyson. It has to be before 1984 because anytime after that, the first Terminator has already been sent back and then the future has already happened. Though it doesn't really matter what they do because nothing changes anyway. All that happens is that they create multiple versions of the same timeline where an infinite number of scenarios are all playing out at once in a never-ending cycle of creation and destruction. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Anyway, let's talk about John Connor. Now, when the movie introduces John Connor, he's hanging out with his friend Tim, fixing his motorcycle, listening to Guns N' Roses, and this was 1995, so it's before Slash left. By the way, it's not made really clear in the movie, but Terminator 2 is actually set in 1995 and not 1991 when the film was released. When T-1000 is looking up John Connor on the police car computer, he's shown as being 10 years old with a date of birth of February 28th, 1985. It was a Thursday. But the thing is, why would T-1000 need to look up where John Connor lived? He's a robot from the future. Shouldn't he have been programmed with that information already? I mean, even T-800 had detailed files on Miles Dyson, and Dyson wasn't part of the original plan. Furthermore, T-800 tells John Connor that T-1000 has the same files that he does, and T-800 actually found where John Connor lived first. Though, to be fair, T-800 did have a head start, so there is that. Anyway, John Connor is living with his foster parents, Janelle and Todd Voight, but doesn't really get along with either of them that well. Later on, we find out a few more specifics, and probably the most obvious of them is that John didn't know his dad growing up due to the fact that his dad hadn't been born yet. We also find out that Sarah Connor raised him but was caught trying to blow up a computer factory and was then taken to Pescadero State Hospital. We then learn that whilst with John, Sarah Connor was in a few different relationships where they would be going okay to begin with, but as soon as she started talking about the rise of the machines, the other guy would leave. Which is not really all that surprising, because that movie sucked. Also, Sarah Connor raised John to believe that in the future he's going to be this great military leader, and part of that meant that John spent a lot of time with weapons and riding around in helicopters. Now, since John knew no other life, that was his normal. So when he was then put in foster care and found out that all the other kids were inking, that's when he realized how different he was. Now, although not stated in the movie, my guess would be that this is why John Connor doesn't really get along with his foster parents that much. Their lives are just too different. Furthermore, his own father isn't born yet, all the other father figures didn't stay long, and then his mother is taken to a mental hospital, leaving John to believe that everything that he was raised up to be was a complete lie. P.S. He's still a whiny little bitch, there's no excuses for that, but I digress. Then along comes Cyberdyne System Series 800 Resistant Infiltrator Model 101 version 2.4, or for the sake of simplicity, Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob?
Now, as we know, John Connor and Uncle Bob develop a unique relationship between a boy and his robot, but it might not be as strange as it seems. Uncle Bob is a cyborg devoid of human emotion. John Connor is a young boy feeling disconnected from his surroundings. Also, if we look at how their relationship develops, when they meet, John Connor is being chased by T-1000 who's trying to kill him. Uncle Bob shows up and saves John's life. After they escape, John clarifies with Uncle Bob that he is indeed a Terminator. So Uncle Bob's very presence is confirmation to John that his mother, Sarah Connor, isn't a total loser, that she was right all along, and most importantly, that his life wasn't a lie. So not only did Uncle Bob save John's life, Uncle Bob saved John's life. Now, as the film goes on, we learn that Uncle Bob's CPU is a neural network processor, a learning computer, but before he was sent back in time, it was set to read only, so he is unable to learn new things. John had the idea of switching it back, which they do, so that Uncle Bob can learn to be more human. Thing is though, why would it be set to read only? I mean, surely future John Connor knew that Charles John Connor was going to set it back anyway. Furthermore, future John Connor would have known that Sarah Connor was going to try and destroy the CPU, so if anything, having it set to read and write before they send him back in time would have potentially avoided the risk of the CPU being destroyed too soon. Anyway, what is the significance of Uncle Bob being able to learn? Now, when John and Uncle Bob rescue Sarah from Pescadero, Sarah hugs John, or rather appears to be hugging John, but is more concerned with checking for injuries, and then tells John that what he did was stupid, that she didn't need his help, and that he's too important to risk himself even for her. Note, she didn't say thank you or show any real form of affection towards him. This is when John cries, prompting Uncle Bob to ask, "What is wrong with your eyes?" Now, this is emphasized later when John snaps back at his mother saying, "If I'm supposed to be this great military leader, then perhaps you should start listening to me." Specifically, he snaps back at his mother as if he's trying to overcome the feeling of being held back. Now, with Uncle Bob being able to learn new things, John is now in a position where he can speak and be listened to, effectively becoming a teacher, and perhaps inadvertently serving as preparation for his future military leader role. Now, Sarah Connor mentions in a narration that Uncle Bob can be the father to John that he never had, which is true, but I also think that John Connor can be the father that Uncle Bob never had. Someone to show him how to talk to people, someone to care about him, someone to show him how to smile. In other words, John Connor is the father figure to his father figure, as well as being older than his actual father. Go figure. And that is what I think of Terminator 2 Villagers. What do you think? Terminator or terminate him? Let me know down below, and if you have a suggestion for a movie you'd like me to explanify, let me know that also. And if you liked this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, I don't know how much longer I can hold on to this.